Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to the Vanguard. For Spike, still the world's best Jewish mountain climber, Cohen. I am Matt Wright, and together we are traversing the muddied waters of freedom.
Again.
So, take 4 by Shane Sweeney.
Thank you. Of all, that's who I want to hear. I want to be shamed by Shane, the Shamer Sweeney.
Right
at the beginning of the show. That's truly what I want.
So roughly about third most. Allow us to thank.
Yeah, exactly. Third most.
Allow us to thank. Big shout out today to Stateside Kava House and also to Sierra for who's bartending tonight. If after the show you want to go and hang out with her.
Yeah.
Or if you're
big up at Sierra for holding the mop situation down, and allow me 5th and 6th most to thank Kroger for the delicious purified drinking water, Bulavanaka. I'm getting waterlogged from all the takes of having to do this.
Right. So anybody who's been watching each attempt at this, sorry.
Yeah.
We obviously having some technical issues.
Obviously, yes.
But we think we got it all figured out, and hopefully we're good to go. No dropped frames yet. So man, I should not knock.
I was gonna say you're awful.
I'm feeling real arrogant with my Spectrum.
You're feeling awful froggy with the streaming
right
overlords that we have. We're gonna have a lot of videos to delete that had 20 seconds of content on.
Yeah, exactly.
So hopefully it was just something stupid on my end that I'll be able to figure out before my show tomorrow, because I actually have a guest. So that'll be fun.
Well, that's fun. So, who is your guest tomorrow?
Lou Sander, who is now known as Dan D. Lyons, because his Lou Sander account was banned, I think, forever.
Really?
Yes. Oh, no, it's back. It had been perma-banned, but then he won appeal or something like that.
Oh, well, good.
So he's out on parole. But Lou Sander / Dan D. Lyons will be on my show to talk about the Midwest Peace and Liberty Festival that's coming up. So, or he won't, because I won't be able to figure out the streaming.
One of those two things is going to happen.
One of those two things. You won't believe what'll happen.
You should tune in to find out.
You should tune in to find out if that's possible.
You'll be real happy to know that I've got Shane Sweeney on my show on Thursday.
Nice.
Yes.
He's a big get.
I'm big get Shane Sweeney.
That's what I call him. I call him Shane Sweeney, the big get.
The big get. So I kind of blew my opening on the first take. So now I'm like, do we just jump into it, or do we need to warm up?
Speaking of not doing things, I'm going to do it. Alyssa Milano.
So
Alyssa Milano. This is a rare episode where we're not going to talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Except for right now.
Oh, yeah?
Well, I mean, just in passing.
Oh, yes.
Right.
So, Chris Reynolds, you can save your lap dance for the day. Alyssa Milano has called for all progressive and pro-choice women to go on a hashtag sex strike.
Hashtag sex strike.
Hashtag sex strike until their reproductive rights are no longer under attack. And men everywhere celebrate, but also celibate.
Well, right. Celebrate, and celebrate. I spelled that really
celibate.
Yeah. So because of all of the laws that have been going on, and the new laws, the heartbeat laws, the anti-abortion laws, Alyssa Milano has now said, you don't get any of our body until we get full body autonomy back. Her exact tweet in which she was announcing this read, our reproductive rights are being erased. Until women have legal control over our own bodies, we just cannot risk pregnancy. Join me by not having sex until we get bodily autonomy back. I'm calling for a hashtag sex strike. Pass it on.
Yeah,
she is
pass it on.
Literally advocating for what Christian conservatives have been advocating for longer than
forever.
Longer than I've been alive.
Since the New Testament. So we've got, actually, since before the New Testament. So you have a progressive pro-choice person with a vagina, because you can't say woman anymore, or cis woman. And she's basically calling for the abortion debate to be ended by virtue of the only women who would have gotten abortions just not having sex and thereby not conceiving any children to abort. So,
right.
This is a big pro-life win. And they say, we're not going to do it until we get our bodily autonomy back. To which the Christian right said, okay.
Deal. That's fine.
That's a deal. We'll keep having children. We'll vote for more of this.
We here at Muddied Water, being the journalists that we are, being just on top of everything, we reached out to Dave Bugliari, who most of you probably go, who? But this is Alyssa. This is Alyssa Milano's husband. We reached out to him, but he was unavailable for comment. But he was witness purchasing hand lotion and Kleenex. So I think he's kind of on board.
She has a husband?
She does, since 2009.
This man, who I presume is also a progressive pro-choicer. I don't know that, but I would assume that.
You would think.
One would think. While the breeders are banging it out twice a night to celebrate this new law, I presume, you have a guy who's against this, I would assume, and he's not getting any.
Right.
Because bodily autonomy.
Right.
It's one thing to say, I refuse to have sex with Governor Brian Kemp or any of the people that passed this rule. That makes sense. Or anyone who voted for Brian Kemp or whatever. It's another thing to say, I'm not going to have sex with my own husband who agrees with me.
Right. And my thing on my thing on this is, like, I already know the answer to this, but is she legitimately not going to have sex with her husband?
No.
Right.
Well, maybe. I don't know. Maybe. You know what?
No way. There is no way.
Unless she wasn't already, and this is now, honey, I was going to tell you before, but I'm on #SexStrike. And there's one an opportune moment. I was really just following this legislation as it was going through.
Right. I mean,
the assembly there.
Now, all of this legislation, all of it, whether you're talking about Alabama, whether you're talking about Georgia, whether you're talking about here in Florida, wherever, it's not going to end until it goes to the Supreme Court at this point.
Right. So, there's going to be federal judges staying any attempt to enforce this. And by the way, this actually doesn't come into power until it doesn't take effect until January of 2020. The way it's written, and again, that assumes that a judge isn't gonna say no. We're not gonna do this until we've had a look at it. Which is, I would say, I mean, the smart money is on that happening until the Supreme Court, just because this is such a big change in precedent. Until the Supreme Court takes a look at it, and for all the people that are super confident that the MAGA Supreme Court is going to rubber stamp this into law because it's MAGA SCOTUS and, Trump's appointed two of them and technically it has a 6-3 conservative majority. There are plenty of times that conservative majorities unravel when the case hits the docket. More on that later. But I wouldn't be all that confident that it's not going to get struck down, especially some of the provisions in this rule. So it's one thing to say, okay, so there's a few things. The biggest one I would say is that as it's written, and I haven't read this law, but supposedly as it's written, if a pregnant woman goes to another state and gets an abortion in that period of time after the baby would have a heartbeat, then she can be tried for manslaughter or murder when she gets back home.
Right.
And anyone who assisted her in doing that can be tried for, I guess, accessory to the crime or whatever, complicity in murder. Putting aside the question of whether states are even going to cooperate with that in giving information to verify that they came and did this, and then the question of whether HIPAA would even allow an abortion clinic to tell a state whether someone got an abortion without the woman's consent in another state that doesn't recognize that law. It's basically saying you and your child are the property of the state. So if I were to go to a state where it's legal to, let's say, smoke weed or whatever, when I come back to South Carolina, I'm not going to be charged for anything because I didn't do anything in their jurisdiction. The only way they can say that I broke a law by doing it somewhere else is if I'm their actual property. So that's the thing. If nothing else, I think that even if they end up upholding the general law, I think that part's going to get struck down for many reasons.
Yeah, you are probably correct on that. They will probably say you can't say you can't charge somebody who did it in a different state because you don't own the people.
Yeah, I can't see how that gets enforced.
You can only govern what happens inside the borders, and you cannot force people to not leave the borders.
Right. You can say this isn't legal here. If you do this here, you could say, I'm going to an extreme. If you brush your teeth, we'll charge you with murder. Okay. I can go somewhere else and brush my teeth, and if I come back, they can't charge me with murder because I didn't do it there. I'm not under their jurisdiction.
Right.
Obviously, brushing teeth isn't murder, but I'm just saying an extreme.
You're killing tons of bacteria. You're murdering tons of bacteria.
It's a genocide.
It's massive genocide.
It's a massive. Well, I don't want to give them any ideas, but if that were to happen,
those are single-celled organisms that deserve the right to live.
Oh wow, they have thoughts too, Matt. They have thoughts too.
We're going to make them endangered if we continue to brush our teeth.
This is a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope. It starts with abortion, and before you know it, you can't have pest control. It's coming. No, it's not coming. Probably not. So anyway, so the point of that is I'm pretty sure that'll be struck down. Diego 2K Garcia says, how do you feel about abortion? Okay, I'm assuming you guys are pro-life, correct? I'll let Matt speak for himself. I typically consider myself pro-life. I'm also a libertarian and an anarchist, so I don't think that the way to deal with
18 minutes.
What?
18 minutes.
Oh wow, that was early.
You threw out the anarchy card real early today.
The last time was like an hour and a half, right?
Hour and 3 minutes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are you recording these?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in my head.
Okay. I just hope. Is there a chart? Because maybe we should chart this.
You should definitely chart it.
Well, the cat's out of the bag. I'm an anarchist. So, and as such, I don't really think the state plays a role in fixing the problem or the question of abortion. But I think just as a simple matter of course, if you have a thing with brain activity and a beating heart that, if allowed to continue to grow, is going to be a full-ass human being, and what we all came from, then terminating that for some reason other than protecting the life of the mother, even with rape, it's she didn't consensually have the kid anymore. It's a tough one, but I could even see having that as an exception because it's so rare compared to the vast majority of abortions, which are just like, well, I don't want to have the child. And I'm not underplaying the reasons people have for having abortions. I don't think most people are like giddy about having abortions. I think that it's, for most people that get them, it's a tough decision for them to make for most of them. So I'm not trying to trivialize what they're going through, but yeah, I would consider myself pro-life, but I'm definitely not part of the, Christian right pro-life. I put it this way: I don't think this law is the way to deal with it, especially not the idea, the slippery slope that's created by saying even if you break
right.
any law outside of the state, if you do anything that would have been illegal in the state, we're going to get you as soon as you come back. I think that's a huge mess.
As Big Get Shane Sweeney says, making a law only creates criminals. Changing the culture regarding abortion can solve the problem.
Yeah, it really is. Yes. I mean, that's in my mind. You're gonna stop a lot of abortions through a lot of different things. First of all, abortions are down and continue to drop slightly each year because of increased access to contraception, increased sex education, and increased knowledge of exactly what's inside of these women. I think in the 70s and 80s, it was more like this abstract thing with these very rough ultrasounds. Now that we get these 3D images where you can, reconstruct it and see an actual baby forming, I think that's a big part of it. So I think abortions are a problem that are through increased education and also the fact that apparently kids are having less sex, which is kind of why, but they are. And when I say kids, I mean like teenagers in early 20s, like young millennials and Generation Z people are having the least sex of anyone since like my dad's generation, which was before the boomers, which is okay. So that's helping. So I don't think criminalizing going out of state to get an abortion because you were raped is a good look. I don't see how that helps your cause.
Also, at that point, what happens if, like, the next step in that, I believe, I would think anyway, would be if you were to conceive a child in Georgia, even if you weren't a resident of Georgia, but let's say you're vacationing in Savannah.
Yeah.
You're enjoying the Savannah St. Patrick's Day festivities, which are great if you've never been. I would never go back because I don't drink anymore. But if you do, go. Like, it's a great time. But you're there. You and your girlfriend or your fiance or wife or whatever. You're there and you hook up and bam, she gets pregnant, and then you go back to Florida. Like, they can't say, well, that was conceived here. That was conceived.
It creates so many. No, you're exactly right. That would be the next step, because they're saying, because this fetus, baby, whatever you want to call it, doesn't have a social security number or established residency yet. They're saying because it was a baby from Georgia at conception, well, it's a Georgian baby until it, decides otherwise, and we're going to protect it. There's just so much. And then it asks the question, does that mean child support starts at conception? Because if this is a human life that needs to be protected, everything that applies to a baby now applies to a fetus. And I'm not necessarily against making changes to say fetuses are babies now, but I think this was this was a law that was passed for political reasons, because Georgia is very pro-life. This guy ran as pro-life. He wants to create a wedge issue on the left, which in the South still has many social conservatives in it. So I get it. I get why he did it. But man, it's going to be, people are talking about boycott Georgia. I'd be scared to go to Georgia. Yeah. Like, what's the next thing that they're going to say you can't do elsewhere and then step foot there?
I'm waiting for I'm just waiting for the flood, the absolute flood of people who are 20 years old and 3 months to go around and say, nope, begins at conception. I'm now 21.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm now 21. I should be able to drink. Or, 17 and 3 months where, nope.
Why wouldn't you be? Right. If you're legally a human being with all the rights bestowed upon you, why would it start when you pass through the birth canal? That's now kind of an arbitrary thing.
Right.
I mean, it's not arbitrary, but it's arbitrary in that it's not like
as far
nothing's
as
actually happening that's special there anymore.
Right. As far as age goes, like technically, according to Georgia law,
yeah.
You've been living for 9 months. Okay, well then I want to have all of the rights that are given to me at the right age. Like, yeah, I want to start drinking 9 months earlier. I want to start smoking cigarettes 9 months earlier. I want to, if Georgia ever legalized weed, smoke weed 9 months earlier. Like, not that Georgia's not going to do that anytime soon.
Georgia, South Carolina, we will be the last states to do these things. The age of consent in Georgia is 16 years old. So that means you're going to have 15-year 2-monthers saying, I'm ready to consent.
Yeah.
Because I was a person when I was conceived.
And then you're going to have people who are much older than that telling them that they want to consent.
Yes. But then they're going to immediately move from Georgia because you don't want to conceive there. It's just a way, like, again, this was passed, in my mind, it was somewhat unserious how they passed it. They passed it in a way that would make pro-life, so single-issue pro-life voters make up, and this was like 10 years ago when I read it, but I imagine it hasn't changed much. Single-issue pro-life voters, people who vote for one reason. They don't care about anything else. They don't care about immigration. They don't care about Republican, Democrat, whatever. They care about abort. 20% single-issue pro-life voters. That's all they care about. 1 out of every 5 voters, and they are among the most likely to vote, are people who only care about your position on abortion. That's it. If you're pro-life, and the more pro-life you are, the more they will support you, campaign for you, volunteer for you, donate for you. That is a huge. We talk about, the Republicans and Democrats competing for the black vote, which is something like, I think it's somewhere around 11 or 12% of the overall vote, or the burgeoning Hispanic vote, which is getting up in the mid to high teens. 20% of voters, all they want to know is, are you pro-life or not?
Right.
And single issue pro-choice is way lower, because pro-choice people also typically have a lot of other things that you have to check off on the progressive side. Pro-life voters are doing it for a religious reason.
Yes.
They don't give a crap about taxes or trade. They might have opinions on those things, but you could be against every single one of those things and they will vote for you. If you could be on everything else, something that they could be against every other one of your positions. If you support banning abortion and doing it in the most like severe and harsh terms possible, like this bill would do, then, or even, making it where at the very moment of conception, it's illegal to abort the very second it's made, which means that if you use an IUD, you've committed murder. They will vote for you. And that's all they care about, because they believe that like not doing that is, getting in the way of their potential eternal salvation. Like, I mean, they're doing this for religious reasons. So that's why they did it. But it was the way they wrote it was dumb as hell.
Yeah. And Shiloh Larch. Sorry, Shiloh, if I'm saying your name wrong. 17-year-olds legal for porn. So like barely legal would have a whole new definition.
That by the second, there'd be a countdown to the minute. They go, I was conceived now. And then they start up next.
Right, exactly. And like, so there would be porn that would be legal in Georgia because, barely legal. Yeah, no, I'm totally legal to be in porn now. Would be blocked from everywhere else.
So almost kiddie porn would be legal in Georgia, having a baby and then aborting it anywhere on earth, illegal.
Right.
You can see where the paradox comes in.
Right.
It's crazy. So now on the horizon, we have an issue where, and this is a game changer. Bette Midler has reportedly also joined in on the hashtag sex strike.
Well,
to the chagrin of
nobody.
No one.
Not a single person.
Literally no one.
Literally no one.
No one.
The most surprising thing about this news is that Bette Midler is still alive.
Yeah. In other news, Bette Midler, not dead.
Not dead.
I'm not sure that anyone has cared about having sex with Bette Midler since Wind Beneath My Wings, which
I wouldn't understand why. That song's like 47 minutes long.
Well, no, since then, I think people, there might have been a few people that were like, yeah, I like your show tunes. And then they hear that and they're like, I don't want to have sex with this woman.
Right.
That was like in the 80s.
I mean, that was, I can't believe I know this. So that was a song that was written for the movie Beaches. It was Oscar nominated for Best Original Song.
Oh, really?
It was. Having seen Beaches countless times. Literally, I've seen that movie more times than I could possibly admit, and you would call me a liar.
I wouldn't, because I know your viewing habits, and they're weird.
Not only that, but I have two sisters who loved it, and we had one TV growing up.
I see. Oh, see, this all makes sense now. All this like teen rom-com stuff. You were abused.
I was. No, 100% I was abused.
You were TV abused.
I was TV abused. This is why democracy...
This is a moment.
This is a healing moment. This is why true democracy doesn't work. I ended up watching Beaches and rom-com. Like, I've seen Sleepless in Seattle literally 2,000 times. Okay, not literally. I've seen it at least 300 times, though.
Democracy is two sisters and a little boy deciding what to watch tonight.
Right. Are you going to watch some action movie, or are you going to watch Beaches again? It was Beaches.
A constitutional republic is that little boy having a gun and still having to watch Beaches.
Yep.
But also having a gun. That's Ben Franklin said that.
Yeah.
Quote.
Yes. Shane
so yeah,
Sweeney,
Bette Midler not having sex.
Bette Midler not having. Yeah. So
got off on a thing.
Yeah, we did. But yeah, I even back then I didn't understand why Bette Midler was attractive, even a little bit, and you know that was in my formative years.
Yeah, because Barbara Streisand, you look at her now, it's like, ugh. But then if you see Barbara Streisand,
I never found her attractive either.
Stuff from like I'm not even into white women. Stuff from like the 50s, like, holy crap. Like, oh wow, she was pretty. And then even by the 70s, it was like, I see you've settled into this look. And since then it's just been like, you know,
right,
Gloria Steinem territory. But there's gonna be some people that are gonna make some connections there.
Yeah.
It's okay, I'm Jewish. But but I mean, so I could.
I knew exactly where you were going with that.
I know. And we have those people that are like, yes, Gloria Steinem. Yes. So she was, I could see Barbara Streisand. Bette Midler. No, I'm good. Thanks.
Yeah.
It's good.
You throw in Sarah Jessica Parker, though, all of them have one trait in common.
Oh, horse nose.
Yeah. That nose.
Yeah. And she's like Scots Irish or something. So I don't even know what to tell you there. That's just a deformity.
That's just a thing.
That's just a thing. So speaking of abortion, stupidity. I'm surprised. So this was something that I was surprised we didn't talk about last week, but I guess it is. He won't let it out of the news cycle. In Pennsylvania, a state representative named Brian Sims offered people money to dox a group of and they were kids, right? Like they were like teenagers.
Let me play the audio for you. Got it right here.
Oh, good. Nice.
I hope this works because I haven't tried it from this computer yet. This might work. Yeah, I think it's going to work. It's just very slow right now.
Okay.
But, so yeah, Brian Sims.
Yeah, Brian Sims offered people money to dox a group of Christian prayer volunteers.
Representative Brian Sims here, and I'm once again out in front of Planned Parenthood of Southeastern Pennsylvania. Today's protester. Now, she is an old white lady who's going to try to avoid showing you her face. Shame on you. What you're doing here is disgusting. This is wrong. You have no...
I just want to point out, because I didn't get a chance to pull the video over. She is she's praying the rosary while he's saying what you're doing here is wrong. That is a very important point that needs to be made in this video.
Business being out here.
So after he does her, a couple days later, this passes.
These are the kind of attacks that we can expect on Planned Parenthoods in the current administration. Shame on you, man, for standing out here thinking you know what's right for other people's bodies. And don't convince yourself that what you're doing isn't extremely racist. How dare you? This is grotesque.
So real quick on that. Racist. Which, this woman might be white. Not 100% sure. He's right. You don't see her face. She could be Hispanic. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not going to say. But where the idea of Sanger, Marla Sanger,
Margaret Sanger.
Margaret Sanger. Marla Singer was in Fight Club.
Marla Singer.
Margaret Sanger.
Evil Marla Singer.
Yeah. Margaret, whatever. Sanger. Thank you, Sanger. I keep getting, all I'm thinking is Fight Club.
Marla Singer.
Yeah. When she came up with abortion, the initial intention for it was to keep African Americans from having children.
Yeah. Black people, Jews, Slavs, like anyone, Eastern Europeans, pretty much anyone that wasn't Aryan or arrogant. And also, people with, any kind of deformities, if they had a child, and she was a eugenist. She believed in the whole, right. that white people were genetically superior and that abortion should be used as a tool to, keep America as white as possible, keep the world as white as and possible. Fit, quote unquote, as possible. And this was a time when Irish people and Eastern Europeans and Greeks and some Italians Italians in general, were not considered white. White meant Northern European. That's who they wanted. Everyone else could go, have abortions all day. And she even spoke in front of Klan rallies. She spoke in front of a couple Klan women's luncheons, talking about how abortion was important to keep the Negro population down. So right. If we're going to inject race into this conversation, which I will graciously assume that these young ladies that are these people that he's calling racist, this is we're not even talking about race.
This is an elderly woman right now. This one is an elderly woman. Again, you don't see her face, so hard to say how old, but definitely an elderly woman who she was just praying. Supposedly, just based on what the videos,
what the video shows, right?
Right. She was just praying, doing the rosary, and this was the racist, horrible, horrendous act that he got mad at. Now let us continue with State Rep Brian Sims.
Is the hiding, shameful face of those that judge.
Oh yeah, she definitely white,
and it's disgusting. A bunch of pseudo-Christian protesters who've been out here shaming young girls for being here. And so here's the deal. I've got $100 to anybody who will identify any of these three.
These are teenagers. These are teenagers that he just offered $100 to dox to anybody that's watching him. That is a disgusting, awful move. Like that is just terrible for anybody in government to be doing. You are literally offering money to dox teenagers, to open them up to the bullying, to open them up to the harassment, to open them up to the threats. All of it. You just did that for $100 because you didn't like the fact that these teenage kids are praying in front of a Planned Parenthood.
First of all, this guy, yeah, exactly. All of that, yes. And I will assume that they were not trying to actually physically block anyone from going into Planned Parenthood.
Not based on the video.
Yeah, I've seen these protests, what they do, especially because a lot of states don't allow them to even talk to the women coming in and stuff like that. But I don't know how Pennsylvania is. But usually what they do is they stand outside of abortion clinics in public areas like the parking lots and the sidewalks and so forth. And they hold up signs about, life and cherishing life and being against abortion. And it ranges everything from supportive and loving to, harsh, but they're just, they're pickets about signs about, their opposition to abortion. And they pray a lot.
Right.
And they do a lot of praying because, again, this is a religious thing.
Right.
They believe that they can, that by praying that they're made, that they're pleading and that, the Lord will touch the hearts of the women that are going in and stop them in that last moment from having an abortion. And I know there's a bunch of them in like the Charlotte area and stuff like that, where they like hand out pamphlets and offer like, if you're not sure if you want to have an abortion, we can help you, with different things and help you to place a child for adoption if you want, or if you think you might want to be a parent but you're just scared, we can help you with that and blah 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 blah. But they're not usually the stereotypical, and it doesn't sound like these ladies, these, old ladies and school kids, it's high school kids, are, the ones that are throwing stuff at people and, yelling whore and slut and stuff like that.
Right.
And by the way, Brian, she's still not going to date you. He sounds like the stereotypical, I'm a male feminist, and he goes in.
I thought you were talking about the comments, and I was like, what did Brian Wolf say?
Oh, no, not Brian. No, Brian, she'll definitely date you, Brian. No, literally Hitler.
Brian Sims.
Yeah, Brian Sims. He, this is like, I support women's rights, guys, and I don't know how far I want to go down. Bottom line is that women aren't attracted to men like that.
Right. So
they say they want that, but they don't actually want that.
So he's now offered $100 to anybody who will identify any of these three. And it in the shot, it's two very obvious teenage girls, 16, 15, I don't know, I can't tell ages anymore. And what looks to be like their guardian of sorts, like whether it's a church leader or a parent or something like that.
Right, a chaperone or a parent.
Chaperone. That was the word I was looking for. Thanks. And then he continues because he's not going to end there.
So we're going to donate to Planned Parenthood.
Just praying for the babies.
So look, a bunch of white people standing up in front of a Planned Parenthood, shaming people.
Yeah. One of these girls, not white, stands up, says, "I'm not white."
Christian about what you're doing. Nothing Christian at all.
Oh, I didn't get the right video. But one girl's like, "I'm pretty far from white." After that, he swings around and he starts talking to this young kid, this young man, this young boy.
Okay.
Gentleman. I don't really like he's too old to be a boy, but too young to be a man. He's like right in that young like adolescent male. Young little skinny, kind of nerdy looking. Like I don't want to pick on the kid, but he's skinny, tiny,
unassuming kid. Right.
Bad haircut, glasses, and he's like, "What's your name?" And the kid tells him. And then he's like, where do you live? And the kid's like, "Oh, I'm from wherever." And I don't know where it was. It was Southeast Pennsylvania somewhere. And I'm just like, what? Why is he doing this to this poor kid? Assuming, even if they are out there, if these kids are out there and they're, "You slut, you whore," waving the signs.
Right, exactly. If they're being abusive or grabbing people or something like that, that's one thing.
If they're doing that, not where Brian Sims should be, and he should not be doing that to a child. He should be doing that to whoever the chaperone is. He shouldn't be doing that to the kid.
Right.
It was a disgusting move, and he only did it 100%. He only did it because he, like you said, she's still not going to date you, bro. He would not have the balls to do that to somebody his own height.
Oh yeah. If you or I were out there, he's gonna look for a woman or a kid to do it too. You can listen, guys, ladies and gentlemen, be careful of your soy intake. Okay, I like a nice tofu. I'll have some tempeh. I like soy. I actually have soy. But you gotta watch your levels, and you gotta make sure that you're eating just organic, non-processed soy. You can't get out here with this soy milk and soy this and soy furky and all this tofurkey and all these fake things. You're getting processed hydrogenated soy protein, which turns into phytoestrogens, and then now you become Brian Sims. So don't do that.
Right.
Don't do that. And you get the titties and women lose the titties. I think I'm not sure what happens with women. But it's not good.
Him going out and he's got his phone and he's selfieing it up with his perfectly manicured face. And
this was pure virtue signaling,
100%. And he's
on a hyper scale.
We have a group of all white people out here, and one of the girls is like, "I'm totally not white. I'm totally not white."
And he is a white male, correct?
Yeah, he's very.
Is this guy a heterosexual? I need to look this up.
I don't know. So, do you know who the Hodge twins are?
No, he's gay. The Hodge twins. Oh, they're like mixed. The guys and they're like do the jokes. Yeah. I know you're.
They were dude. They had that video up on their YouTube, which is where I first saw it, and they said that he looks like Steve Carell from the 40-Year-Old Virgin, except gay.
Yeah, and he is gay. He's actually the first openly gay elected state legislature in Pennsylvania history. Well, Brian, he might date you because he's probably like you, but you didn't have to do that anyway. The rules are completely different with gay men because men are easy, and so you don't even need to do this. You can just get sex because men
right.
That. So different rules. So I take that back. She's still not going to date you, but
you're
might.
Yeah, you're not going to date her though. So I mean,
you're not going to date here. It's just not going to work.
Right.
So and you weren't even concerned about that. So I take that back. I stick with the thing about the soy, and not that soy makes you gay or anything like that, but he was having like a high pitched rage fest at people smaller and weaker than him because they disagreed with him, and that is like I'm telling you, it's phytoestrogens. You got to be careful of that stuff. Be careful. You're out here. You're eating. Oh, it says vegetable. What's the vegetable? It's a soybean.
It's a soybean.
Is the vegetable.
Right.
It's a soybean. So stop it. I have I could go on about phytoestrogens for a while, but I'm not going to.
I appreciate
that. You're welcome. So speaking of things that some people are just trying to kill and it just won't die ever. The Donald Trump Russia investigation, the zombie investigation at this point, because it's over, but yet we're still investigating, and now there's going to be an investigation of the investigation. So Bill Barr, I can't even read you say this because I can't.
So Attorney General Bill Barr, who he has been held in contempt because he didn't want to show up to the Senate, which I've now found out there's other layers to that where he wouldn't. This time he wasn't going to be questioned by Senate. He was going to be questioned by lawyers, and he was like, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not doing this." Like
by their lawyers,
by lawyers who are going to question him about the prosecutorial standard, like whatever it was, and he was just like, "No, this is dumb."
That's grandstanding. Why wouldn't the lawyers just feed the questions to the senators?
I don't know. Don't ask me questions I don't know the answers to.
I won't.
So he has now appointed counsel to investigate the Russia probe and where it came from and whether the intelligence collection was lawful. So when Kamala Harris was up there saying, has Donald Trump or anybody at the White House ever asked you to investigate anyone ever?
Which is your job.
And he's like, I don't understand the question because, yes, that's my job. The answer would have been yes. Yes, they have.
Well, yeah, the answer is now yes. Yeah. He's appointing counsel to investigate.
Right. So
that's his job.
He has now assigned John Durham to investigate the origins of the Russia probe. He is a longtime Justice Department lawyer, currently serving as the U.S. Attorney for Connecticut. And he
so he's a prosecutor.
Yeah.
Oh.
And he has been charged with looking into how the FBI began its investigation into the Russia attempts to tamper with the 2016 presidential election and possible collusion by the Trump campaign, and whether or not the FBI's intelligence collection activities were lawful and appropriate. Now, this sounds like the exact same investigation, except just from like a different, like they tried to flank from the east and it didn't work, so now they're flanking from the west. Except all of this is going to come back to the dossier, the fake Russian dossier.
The Steele dossier.
The Steele dossier. It's all going to come back to that. It's all going to come circling back to that, and he is going to be investigating. Personally, this is what I think. I have not read this. I don't know if this is actually accurate, but he is going to be investigating where that dossier came from, and if it was good enough for them to start doing for the FISA warrants to be search.
Oh, to wiretap Trump and his people.
Right. And if that happens, then, so I think like they came in they flanked from the east and they failed. And so now Trump and his team is going, okay, we just need to go in from the west. We go in from the west. They won't be expecting us from the west. And we're going to take down Hillary, and we're going to take down Obama, and we're going to put them in jail and get rid of Comey.
Yeah, they're going to all go to jail for treason.
Right.
This is
no, they're not. It's just going to be more waste of time and money, and everybody just needs to let it go.
Contra, Whitewater, Iraq WMDs / 9/11 investigation, Benghazi and Fast and Furious, and the Russian investigation, and the investigation of the Russian investigation. Like, no one goes to jail. No one goes to jail because these are the most powerful people on earth. And it's also the most powerful people on earth who may be their political opponents, but they're also the most powerful people on earth. And if they set the precedent that the most powerful people in government can go down for, something other than like, straight up, murdering someone in cold blood or something like that, which Hillary got away with. But, something short of that, some procedural, fraudulent, whether something was lawful and appropriate. Maybe some lackeys get fired. Maybe a couple people go to jail, like with the Russia investigation. But that's it. Mm-hmm. Trump's not going to prison. Obama's not going to prison. Hillary's not going to prison. All the lock her up, lock him up. It's all crap. They're just keeping everyone at each other's throats with this partisan garbage to endlessly investigate the rule of law.
And if anybody, because there's going to be people on the right, specifically in this case, who are going to say, no, she broke the law, she deleted her emails, and she whatever. To anybody who thinks that, Trump's going to jail, or Obama's going to jail, or Hillary's going to jail, name the last time one of our governmental leaders was put in prison for a crime that would have landed us in jail for life. There is one that I can think of. Denny Harlan. Denny Harlan? Speaker? Former Speaker of the House? Haster. Denny Haster.
Yeah, but see, he did something that...
Yeah, he did something else. It had nothing to do with politics.
That was molesting kids.
Right.
That's, and boys, just in case kids wasn't enough.
Yeah, he did the whole Penn State thing.
Yeah, if Donald Trump gets caught molesting boys, all bets are off. And the same thing with, if Hillary Clinton or when molesting, caught and there's proof, then that's one of those things where people are like, yeah, no, you got to go.
Right.
And the voters will cry for blood until that gets resolved because of the nature of that type of crime. This kind of something might be fraudulent and obstruction and this kind of stuff. Go to jail for it.
No.
They break rules, and the worst they do is they have to resign. Nixon, he had to resign, then he got pardoned.
Right.
I'm waiting for Trump to pardon all the people that went to jail for not ratting on him, and not pardoning Michael Cohen, who ratted on him and still went to jail. Good negotiation there. So yeah, I mean,
but he's willing to rat more. Suddenly I have new information. I hate him. I have new information that I can give you if it'll give me less jail time. Why didn't you say it before?
Really, yeah, exactly. Why didn't you say it before? I really hate him. He's terrible. I'm so sorry. Okay, well, you're still going to jail.
Right, you're still in jail.
I want to tell you more about how much I hate him. You're free to do that from jail.
Fine. We'll Skype you in.
We'll Skype you. You can live stream it. Straight to jail.
Right. And you know what? That would probably make a great podcast.
I'd have him on. I'd have an all Cohen hour of power with Michael Cohen, Mike and Spike Cohen. And I just what do you think of Donald Trump? I hate Donald Trump. He's terrible. I hate him. He's a schmuck and he's racist and I hate him. No, okay.
I know,
how's jail?
I know that my love for the TV show Scrubs is pretty much unparalleled by anybody in this world.
Yeah, I believe that.
There's one person who loves it just as much as me. His name's Casey Plott. He's the guy that got me into the show. We can quote the entire show. But for anybody who watches Scrubs, the lawyer on that show, Ted.
Oh, yeah, the bald guy.
Bald guy. Yeah, Ted. Teddy Theodore Buckland, to be exact, Esquire, got his law degree in Alaska because they only have 6 laws and most of them had to do with seals. When it is okay or not okay to club a seal. But he looks to me like Michael Cohen just without hair. Like I see Michael Cohen, I'm like, he's like the sad sack lawyer from Scrubs. And Shiloh, I know that entire song by heart. Not going to say which song on the air. But yeah, so every time I see Michael Cohen, no relation to Spike, I think of Teddy Buckland.
I mean, far enough back we're related, but I don't really like talking about that. Yeah, I mean, and what's crazy is that, and he's always looked like this, like schlubby, and the way he talks, he has kind of a weird, almost like a speech impediment type thing going. And he just has a weird, that with the strong New York accent, just he sounds weird, and he comes off like a doofus. And yet he was like one of the most powerful attorneys in New York for many, many years, and was the fixer for one of the richest people in New York City. Like it's crazy that like. He still now looks like a sad sack, except now he is an actual sad sack.
Right. Now he's a sad sack in prison.
Now he's a sad sack in prison. But so, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I think he's having a bad time. But you know how you won't have a bad time? It's with Anchor FM.
Anchor FM.
Are you looking to start a podcast? I know I am. Well, Anchor FM is the easiest way to start a podcast. Matt, tell them about Anchor FM.
Anchor will give you everything you need in one place for free.
For free?
Which you can use right from your phone or computer.
That is convenient. I heard that they have creation tools that allow you to edit your podcast so it sounds great.
It's very true. Anybody who has listened to our podcast on the Anchor.fm app already knows how great this podcast sounds. And they'll even... because they're such a great company, they'll even distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere. Places like Spotify, Apple, Google, and many more.
That's insane.
I know.
I can't even believe this. And you know what the craziest thing is, Matt? You can easily make money from your podcast.
Really?
Actual money. In fact, we've started making money from our podcast.
We have.
For the first time ever.
Ever.
Thanks to Anchor FM.
But the best part is...
Go ahead.
But the best part is there's no minimum listenership.
No minimum listenership?
I know.
What a time to be alive.
It's amazing.
The future is now.
The future is now.
So guys,
also,
be sure to go...
real quick, want to toss one more thing in that they don't have on our mandatory things to say. You can go to our site at Anchor FM. And there's a donate button, and you can just support us.
Our lives.
Much like a Patreon, but not on Patreon. It's through a much better platform, Anchor FM.
It's like Patreon, except they haven't deplatformed us.
Right.
Anchor FM. So guys, be sure to get out there. If you're looking to make a podcast, be sure to download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started and let us know, because we will follow you and we'll give you good star ratings on all of your stuff. Be sure to do that with all of our stuff. Give us all the ratings. We'll follow each other. We'll all be following each other and giving each other that sweet, sweet, no minimum listenership money.
Because that sweet, sweet, no minimum listenership money, you just get to watch it start coming in.
Which it actually is.
It actually is. Pennies a day. But you know what?
Pennies
money.
Become nickels, become quarters, become singles, and before you know it, we can hire people to do all the monotony, and we just show up and just deliver excellence.
We have all seen the movie Office Space, I believe.
I definitely have, yes.
Right. Now, the plan that they had initially worked out was that this computer virus was just going to take the excess pennies and put it to the side.
Yep.
Granted, they messed up and they moved a decimal point and things got really hairy there at the end. Yeah. But sorry if you haven't seen it, but check it out. It's 20 years old.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Now, with Anchor FM, starting out, you're going to be getting the pennies that you just kind of put to the side. And next thing you know, you've got $10-15 in the bank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then one day, boom.
Money in your pocket.
Money, actual fold-in money, they call it. That's money you can fold. Fold-in money. You're going to be rich. Anchor FM, it's a great deal. But I'll tell you what isn't a great deal. This whole trade war deal with China, huh?
That's true. This whole trade... Jesus, fuck. This whole trade deal that actually is not even that. It's every trade deal.
Every trade deal. They're all the exact opposite of Anchor FM.
They are all the exact opposite of Anchor FM. With Anchor FM, everybody wins. With all of these trade deals, nobody's winning.
Nobody is winning. Everybody is losing.
Right. So let's talk global economics.
So of course the biggest one is the talks between. So there was at one point it was looking like 40 chess master negotiator himself, Donald Trump, was going to be working out a even better trade deal than the one we have with China now, even lower tariffs on both sides, which means even freer trade with fewer obstructions to open up the two largest economic markets in the world to each other, which would bring about vast amounts of increased prosperity, pull literally hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, and drive many more. Drive pretty much everyone up the economic ladder while keeping prices stable. It's looking like a really great thing. And then Donald Trump started tweeting.
Now, before we get into the fallout, I read on the day of the tweet that his tweet, and I could not find this article to save my life after this. So I know it was a real article.
Not sourced.
I read it, so I can't source it for you though. But that this one tweet erased something like $2 trillion from the global money, just gone. They were like, nope, out. Everybody pulled out, and it was out, gone.
Now that's power, by the way. Right. Just as a side note, if you can tweet and it erases an amount of money more than the gross domestic product of all but 2 or 3 countries, that is a powerful. Right. It's not a good use of that power, but it is power.
He did that in 360 characters. I think that's what Twitter allows now. I'm not even 100% sure.
He all caps boomer tweeted the economy into a major correction.
The global economy.
The global economy into a major correction. So China is now raising tariffs on more than 5,000 products to as high as 25%. Duties have on some will increase by 20%. They were previously anywhere from 5 to 10%. So this is a doubling or more.
So on the tariffs, it was the tariffs I think was 10, and the duties was 5.
Duty. So you're seeing a 2.5%, 2.5 time increase on the tariffs, and a quadrupling of the duty. This follows Donald Trump's decision to raise on $200 billion in Chinese products from 10% to 25%. He's deciding on whether or not to put tariffs on the remaining $325 billion in Chinese goods that are sold in the U.S. Because we're against socialism and government intruding in the economy, right?
Right.
But since this trade war is causing major harm to a group of people, farmers who were voted in droves for Donald Trump, he's now seeking from Congress $15 billion in subsidies for farmers to give them relief from the trade war repercussions, because we're against socialism.
Right. And this is where you're going to see many people on the right. So many people on the right. The always Trumpers.
Oh, yeah.
The always Trumpers. They will defend this and go, This is all part of the plan. This is what we need to do. We need to get together as a country. We need to support the farmers while this is going on. No. I mean, I'm all for support. Like, I support the farmers with my hope that he will get rid of the tariffs so they can start selling to them. They can start selling their goods normally, and we don't have to support them.
These are the same people, by the way, who will scream about, black ghetto thugs on welfare. But yet here we are where, once again, as in the inner city, the government has created barriers to entry and regulations and taxes, which is what tariffs and duties are taxes. The consumer pays them. They're paid by the consumer. They're not paid by some other magical entity. All taxes are paid by you when you buy the thing as the end user. And so it's harming the consumers, it's harming the farmers, and so now they're getting the essentially welfare, and they're saying, well, but it's being paid for with the tariffs. Well, that's like saying, yeah, we have welfare, but it's paid for higher taxes on the rich. It's absurd. So stocks have dropped more than 2% yesterday. The Dow dropped over 600 points. Even Larry Kudlow, who has
real quick on the Larry Kudlow thing before we say it. Now, many always Trumpers, they're going to sit there and they're going to go, no, we don't really pay the tariffs. And I'm like, yes, we do. We still pay we pay the tariffs. Like, they just increase the price of the good, so that way that's what you're paying when you it's now just included in the cost.
The end user pays all taxes. Right. Yes.
Now, Trumpers will argue that all day long, that that's not what's happening. Even though if this was, 3.5 years ago, they would be arguing that's what's happening.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right. But now it's not. Now it's different. Now, Larry Kudlow, who is the White House economic advisor, he kind of accidentally said, oh, yeah, no, we're going to pay for
it. That's how tariffs work. Right. Yeah. And Larry Kudlow, I mean, he's definitely a hyper partisan and he'll say some stupid stuff, but he's actually an economist and he, for the most part, knows what he's talking about. And no economist that's even attempting to be honest will try to tell you that a thing that is added to the price of a product isn't paid for by the person who buys it at the end.
Right.
It's like if someone raises, who pays sales taxes? You, the consumer. Who pays corporate taxes? You do. The corporations don't go, man, I guess we're just going to eat into our profit. They pass that cost on to the consumer as much as they can while still saying, go ahead.
You can look at this even in a much smaller scale. Let's say that you go to a record store, which, I don't think there are any national record chains anymore. I think that everything's kind of privately owned, I believe. I could be wrong. But you go to your local record store to pick up a vinyl. Which, if you don't know what those are, I'm surprised you're watching us. And you go and you want to pick up your favorite vinyl from the Beatles, because you found out that they just did this remastered thing, and you go and you pick it up and you look at the cover and it's $36. But you go to Amazon and the same thing is $20. Now, the reasoning that is $36 versus $20 is you now have employees' salaries to pay. You now have electric bills to pay, water bills, state taxes that they got to pay, rent.
The fact that they weren't able to buy it at the same economy of scale, so they didn't get the same bulk pricing.
All of that is being passed on to you, which is the same thing that happens in a tariff.
All overhead is overhead. All overhead is overhead and is paid for by the consumer. Or the consumer doesn't buy it because they can't afford it, or they find a better deal, and that company goes out of business. And the company in this case is the person here selling it to you. It's not the Chinese; they already sold it here. The tariff has already been prepaid by the people bringing it to you, and now you can't buy it, and it puts them out of business.
Right.
So I mean, there's so many places to go with this. Replace tariffs. If you support tariffs to stop the trade deficit and to make things fairer for the American worker, replace tariff with tax, replace trade deficit with income inequality, and replace American worker with American poor. And congratulations, you're a welfare state progressive.
Yep.
And there's no substantive difference. In both cases, you are because of a perceived unfairness. Instead of looking at the problem that caused that unfairness in the first place, you are telling the government to make it even worse by adding a tax which disproportionately harms the very people that it's supposed to help and permanently entrenches them in their level of poverty because now they don't have a way to work their way up. They now just have to live on the social safety net. Right. That's literally what you're advocating for. And so don't tell me you're against welfare, and don't tell me you're against government meddling in the economy if you're in favor of the trade war.
And much like with taxes, because taxes don't go away. Once you get a tax, you have that. That tax is just part of your life forever.
Oh, yeah. Very rarely does a tax get repealed or even reduced.
You can say the same thing about subsidies. These subsidies aren't going away. They're like, these are temporary subsidies in order to help out the farmers while China's not willing to deal. No, these
subsidies become a permanent part of the farm bill.
Are going to be part of the farm bill forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And people will say, because tariffs hurt the consumer. The Chinese government are hurting their consumers primarily. That's who's hurt the most by their tariffs. And people go, well, if tariffs are bad, why are the Chinese doing it? Why are the communist Chinese doing a bad economic decision?
Right.
I don't know. Because they're communists.
And most of the people...
Why is the government that killed like close to 100 million people during the Great Leap Forward to try to forcibly turn everyone into co-op farmers, the entire country? How could they possibly be making a bad economic decision? They're communists. We joke about how communists are stupid all day long.
Yeah.
This is an example of that. We do not have to do what communists do.
Right. And many of the people... the boomers who are, the Trumper boomers who are out there going, who are saying things like, well, China does it. To them, I want to remind them the things that they have been saying to us our entire lives of, if your friends were going to go and jump off of a bridge, would you do it? If your friends are all going to go make a bad decision, you should say no.
You're communist friends. They're not just your friends that make bad decisions. They're communists. Right. Why are you even hanging out with communists?
Stop hanging out with communists.
Stop hanging out with communists. If communists say, hey, man, we're going to try doing these terrible economic policies that cause the global depression and followed by the global war of the 1920s, 30s, and 40s with the Smoot-Hawley Act, which triggered a massive worldwide trade war, which resulted in it began the Great Depression, worsened the Great Depression, and then led to world wars because when countries stop trading goods, they start trading bullets and rockets, and not in the good way. They're firing. You want to join us and do that? No, communist. No, we're going to continue opening our markets up for our consumers because it helps them. It lowers the price of things, and if our producers are seeing that their products cost more than your producers, well, then we're going to get rid of the regulations that make that the case. We're going to get rid of the taxes and regulations and put them on an even playing field so that not only will they be able to compete even better than you, but you may end up start moving your bases of operation, or at least the end assembly plants over here, because it'll save you guys money. The alternative to that is what happens when you raise the price of basic goods and services. What happens is we are a net importer of things like steel and aluminum and basic products like that. We import raw materials and export finished products, air conditioners, cars, prefab this and that, electronics and things like that. What happens is, so imagine you're an air conditioner, you're an air conditioner company, a fairly large one, okay? You rely heavily on steel and aluminum. And you've been able to buy it fairly cheaply in the U.S. Because you get it from China and from Canada. Well, now with these tariffs, now it costs so much that you can't compete with foreign air conditioning companies who are still able to buy it more cheaply from those countries. So now you have one of three options. You can either move your base of operations to a country like Canada or China or Mexico, where you can still buy that. So now you're losing American jobs because those jobs are going to go somewhere else. You can advocate for tariffs on air conditioners from other countries, which is partially what's been happening to air conditioners and washing machines. which now makes it even worse because now you're moving up the food chain of people who need those things, and it costs more. Now they can't provide things like how you couldn't provide air conditioners with the more expensive steel. Or you run to government and demand subsidies, which are paid for by robbing everyone else.
Right.
So now you're rent seeking. You have one of many options, but none of them are good. All of them are bad. And then let's address. Thank you, Matt, for letting me rant on this. You actually put in the notes, Spike will rant about tariffs, and I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you. Let's talk about this trade deficit thing. I talked about this on my show last week, but let's go ahead and what the hell? Let's do it again. Imagine a scenario.
Imagine if you will.
What's that?
Imagine if you will.
Imagine if you will. So you go to Walmart, and the Walmart greeter says, "Hey, welcome to Walmart." And you say, "Hey, you cut it out with that. I know this story here. I've got my eye on you. I know exactly what's going on now. We have a massive trade deficit, you and I. I come to Walmart. I bought $15,000 worth, $20,000 worth of stuff last year from Walmart. You didn't buy a single penny of anything from me at all. We have a $20,000 trade deficit. That's unfair. It's systemically unfair. You're able to sell me all this cheap stuff, and I don't got nothing I can even sell you. And I'm going to stop it right now. We're gonna. If you don't start buying stuff from me, I'm gonna start taxing myself every time I buy anything from you.
Right.
I'm gonna tax myself. I'm gonna lose that money, and I'm gonna do that because I need to negotiate here from a position of strength." And the Walmart greeter goes, "Would you like to speak with a manager?" And you say, "Go to speak to the manager." And he says, "What? You don't have anything to sell?" And you go, That's not the point. We have a trade deficit." Now you're probably listening to this scenario and thinking, well, but that's not the same, because when I go to Walmart, I'm buying stuff that I want. I don't care that they're not buying stuff from me. That's not my relationship with China, with Walmart. I'm going and buying stuff that I want. That's the same thing with China.
It's the same thing.
China is not taking money from us and giving us less money. First of all, it's not China and America. You, an individual consumer, are making purchasing decisions based on your perceived best value for your money. And very often that means products that came either directly from China or came in through a company, like a Walmart, but was made in China and then distributed by Walmart, or a product that includes that, a more durable, more complex product that includes other products and materials that were made or distributed from China. Because it was the best value for you.
Right.
You didn't lose anything. There's no deficit. You gave money and got something in exchange for it that you believe is either that to you has at least as much, if not more value than the money you exchanged it for. Trade deficits are a myth, just like income inequality. So stop it.
Yeah, that's actually, so one of the completely anecdotal, but one of the weirdest, most emotionally charged fights I've ever, not fights, heated debates with my family I ever got into was over trade deficits. And I said, I've got a trade deficit with Walmart.
Right.
To which, that's not even the same thing, because Walmart, you're going to Walmart to buy something. And I was like, how is that any different than what we're doing with China?
Who are these people that are going to China and saying, okay, China, I give you $100. And they go, okay, we give you $40. You go, oh, son of a bitch, I lost $60. You're buying something.
You're buying something at an agreed upon price. Now, forgive me for what I'm about to do here.
Okay.
But when I was hanging out with Rand Paul, he used this exact story, actually. I have a trade deficit with Walmart. Man, that just rang forever in my ear.
I was wondering if it was that loud.
It was.
That's how I feel about this Rand Paul business.
Rand Paul. That's right.
Go ahead. Tell me more about what Ron Paul Light said.
Right. But, he said the exact same story you just said, essentially.
Yeah.
It wasn't as long because he's
politician.
Right.
He's more polished than me. Right. Let's just say it. Not as raw. He's not as raw, but he also doesn't have my aesthetic.
That's true. But yeah, and he was saying that, and he's like, and people, doing the hands together thing that he does. What? People say, that's different, but it's not different because,
same thing.
You're getting what you want from China, and all we're doing is raising the price for all of us here in America. I mean, it was in this moment that I finally started to understand like what a trade deficit really was. And it's like, yeah, you're buying goods from somebody. And what he said that really sank in, which is something that I already knew in practice, but I'd never really thought about it. Whenever a trade war happens, tariffs never go down. They always go up, and they never go away. Much like anything else much like subsidies,
taxes, like entitlements, else. Anything, yeah.
So we can look forward, and anybody who watches the show regularly, you probably know I am an Apple fanatic. I am that guy. I've got the Apple Watch. I've got the iPhone. I've 2 MacBooks. I've got an iPad somewhere in this room that I use to do this show. All of their stuff is made in China. The cost of this show just skyrocketed by up to 15% higher?
25%.
Yeah,
15% from what it was. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So from 10% to 25%. So everything has now shot up for this show to go on. Because
you are forcing Matt to get Android products,
and that's not happening. More on Apple later.
I was gonna say, yeah. Speaking of, that was a little bit of foreshadowing there.
Yeah, no, Apple did not have a good week.
And this is at a time when, so we go, well, we're boxing China in. China's economy is growing faster than the U.S. economy, and they're also enacting trade deals with their neighbors, Russia and India and all, and Japan and all these countries, while also doing the Road and Belt Initiative to basically create a massive superhighway system through most of Eurasia that with China as the center of it. They're doing that at a time when the U.S. is taking a populist, protectionist, economics are for cucks turn. And also now, apparently, the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, the renegotiation of NAFTA, is stalled in the House. Now, some of that is because the Democratic Congress is not going to pass anything that comes from Trump and give him a victory.
Right.
Even though
the worst trade deal in the history of trade deals.
Yeah.
Something. I don't remember the exact.
Right. Yeah. But the Republicans did that with NAFTA. And again, NAFTA was not perfect, but NAFTA is why NAFTA, along with the net reduction in the cost of government, like 2 or 3 years in a row, those two things and the dot-com boom are why people look back fondly at the 90s in terms of the economic expansion that happened, along with the relative flattening. So the price of living stayed roughly the same. Inflation was fairly low, and the economy was growing by leaps and bounds. That happened because government got out of the way, had a net reduction in its, and not even a large net reduction, but just a net reduction in the amount of harm it did to you economically. And you see what great comes from that. Why Donald Trump is doing this, I think he thinks it's a good idea. And it's interesting because his approval rating has actually gone up a couple points. And this proves the economic literacy of America. I think a lot of American voters think that the reason bad things are happening to them right now is because China is hurting them and that Donald Trump is fighting for them. And you can wrap your head around that one. But so that's a horrific event. And speaking of horrific events, this is your state. I think you should explain this.
Man, I need you to explain this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So off the coast of Matt's state, the southern end. Well, Matt's in the, I guess, the western part of Florida, so it's not quite the same. But off the coast of southern Florida, 2 whales beached themselves. Was it this morning or yesterday or?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. Passersby tried to attempt to rescue. One of the whales released his bowels all over a whale. If you picture a whale bowels, this is not a inconsequential volume of bowel. Released his bowels all over a woman, Sierra Peterson. She had to be rushed to a nearby hospital due to a severe bacterial infection, causing the woman's skin to start burning and become inflamed. She lost sight in one eye. We're not sure if her lost sight is temporary or permanent. The second woman refused to talk about what she had seen, obviously disturbed at the event she had witnessed. In related news, whale poop is a potential allergen.
Now, for clarity,
mm-hmm.
Sierra bet me that I couldn't get you to say her name on the show.
Is this not true at all?
No, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. She actually wrote that news story.
I already said her name earlier.
I know. So I'm winning doubly today. But she wrote the news story. She was like, I bet you he won't read it because it's so dumb. And I said, I'll take that bet.
Well, I'm glad you made some money.
Yeah. So sorry about that. Two whales did not.
I hope this works out. Can we get the mop situation resolved as a result of this?
Right, exactly.
Can the healing begin with the mop situation?
Right, we need the mop situation. We need the mop situation resolved quickly. So Sierra Peterson no longer feels like making up stories where she gets defecated
When I was reading this, I'm like, oh, hey, here's someone named Sierra.
So
I'm doing this to you.
I know.
At some point.
I know. I usually fact check things that are in there.
You know why I'm angry? Let me talk about why I'm angry for a second.
Why are you angry, Spike?
I'm mostly angry at you, but I'm angry at me. I'm angry at you. I'm not even angry at Sierra. I'm not mad at Sierra. I'm just disappointed and a little mad. I'm angry mostly at myself because this is the dumbest damn story.
I couldn't believe that you added a note afterwards. When I saw that today, I laughed heartily. That was the first thing I checked. I did not check Facebook or email when I woke up today. I checked Google Drive to find out.
You texted me and said, you got anything to add to the notes? And I'm like, oh, yeah.
That was after. Did I text you last night?
You texted me this afternoon.
Right. No. Yeah. This morning when I woke up, you had already added the notes.
Yeah.
So that was why I was like, I couldn't believe that you read that and didn't even question it once.
Update to a previous report. Whale poop is no longer believed.
It could possibly be a potential allergen.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there, right? Like if you have a fish allergy,
right? Like
or an
I have
allergy.
A shellfish allergy. Like
you'd be screwed. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I'd be dead.
So if this actually, so be careful, my friend, because if this happens to you, you're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say that.
She asked if she could do this every week. I said no.
Definitely not. Not unless she's going to help me come up with a name to drop in and make use. I can't believe it.
You're just going to have to add her and be like, really? Whale poop?
I definitely have to add her after this. I almost wanted to read more about this, but I was like, oh, it's so horrifying.
Because she wrote the entire story. So I was like, this is so bad, he may not look this up.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I thought that's just horrible. There's nothing what more can be added to that? So North Korea, we're just going to moving forward on maritime stories.
Talk about awful trade deals. North Korea.
Speaking about trade deals and poop, tricking Jews, North Korea, in an obvious anti-Semitic incident. I know nothing about this story. They were picked up by this is all your notes.
So
how about you say this one?
That's why I need you to say it. So North Korea, obviously under many sanctions across the globe, both from the U.S. and the UN. One of these is that they are not allowed to export any commodities like coal, lead, iron, because they don't want any way for them to fund their nuclear program.
Right. Or like,
what's that? Yeah. Or heat.
Or eat.
Or eat. Yeah. So this has been one of the sanctions that they've had. Now, the second largest ship in the North Korean, not arsenal, whatever they call it.
Armada.
What's that?
Fleet? Armada?
Fleet. And the North Korean fleet was picked up and sailed thousands of miles off course to American Samoa, where the ship was completely stripped and searched for any residue of coal, because they wanted to find out if they were violating sanctions by carrying illicit coal, which is definitely different than licit coal.
Rare to find licit coal.
Rare to find licit coal. Actually, I think licit coal is everywhere. This is
it's a good point. Yeah, so this is rare illicit coal.
Right. This is rare illicit coal. Now,
most coal totally licit.
The announcement the announcement of the U.S. seizing this ship and sailing it to thousands of miles to the American Samoa came shortly after North Korea appeared to launch 2 short-range missiles in a test, which I'm pretty certain goes against the sanctions as well.
Those are illicit missiles.
Right. Those are illicit. Those are not licit missiles. Malicit.
The Patriot missiles, very illicit. These missiles not
licit.
Yeah. The opposite.
So the historic peace accord that happened back in 2016, 17 or 18.
Oh, with Trump. Yeah. 18. That was last year, wasn't it?
Was that last year? Okay. Yeah, 2000.
That was last year, I believe.
Yeah, 2018 peace accord that happened between the U.S. and North Korea has apparently been crumbling. So Trump is
that the word you'd use?
Crumbling?
Would you not say that they've
queered
it?
They've queered it. Yeah, the actions queered the once hailed as historic accord between the U.S. and North Korea.
You hate to see a good peace deal get queered.
That's true. You hate to see.
Sad.
You hate to see his trade deals are getting queered.
He's getting queered a lot.
He's getting everything that he's been putting into place that is part of his 4D chess has been getting queered.
This has been queer eye for the orange guy.
Right.
Sad. Speaking of queers, Chief Justice. Oh no, he's not Chief Justice. No. Newly queered Justice Kavanaugh. We were talking about Apple earlier. They're getting queered too. A lot of queering happening.
A lot of queering. First of all, let's point out Justice Kavanaugh, who was going to be bringing about the apocalypse. Who was going to
and both sides said this too. He was bringing about the conservative end, the end game, Avengers end game for conservatives.
Right. He was the alleged gang rapist, the alleged Mickey Servin rapist, Supreme Court justice.
Gang rape party mastermind.
Alcoholic, crazy, completely off his, emotionally off the end of the cliff. Chief.
I like beer, Senator.
I like beer. I liked beer. I still do.
Beer? I still drink beer.
I still drink beer. He, first of all, he cited against the conservatives initially in a anti-abortion case.
Yep.
It was a Planned Parenthood funding case, I believe.
Yep.
And once again, he has sort of taken the John Roberts seat, where he's supposed to be the conservative that's always siding with the right, and once again has sided with the left.
Yep.
On an antitrust law. So
before we get into this law, keep in mind when Antonin Scalia died, Justice Antonin Scalia died, Obama was still president, and he proposed sort of a compromise candidate, Merrick Garland. Okay. And the left was like, ooh, Obama. Like, I mean, he could have picked anyone and they would have been happy. Right. And similarly, the right was outraged because Obama was proposing to add a third justice as president.
Right.
And Cocaine Mitch and the China person's McConnell, in retrospect, very wisely or very cunningly said, yeah, no, we're not voting on this. We're going to leave it up to the American people to decide who the next president is, and they can pick.
Quite the gamble, by the way. Quite the gamble.
That? Oh, that was a gamble. Because I don't think even he thought Trump was going to win. The smart money was on Trump not winning.
Yes.
Maybe up until the last couple weeks where some of the more sober pollsters like 538 and the people following it were like, guys, he might win. He has a 1 out of 3 chance of winning now. Like and that's a real thing. And there are a lot of factors that could almost make it an even match.
Right.
And not with the popular vote, but with the specific states that he needed to win. But Cocaine Mitch was doing that back before they even knew Trump was going to be the nominee, to the point where when he was the nominee, then people were like, well, maybe he's going to allow, a vote on Merrick Garland. He's like, no.
Nope.
Okay. The point of all that is Justice Kavanaugh, when he was in the same court as Merrick Garland, he ruled the same way as Kavanaugh did. What was it, 93% of the time?
I know it was at bare minimum 90.
Yeah, I mean, more than 9 out of 10 times he sided with a guy that Obama was fine with having on the Supreme Court. This was not the arch conservative that was sold on people. He's basically a neocon. He's Merrick Garland. Not quite Merrick Garland, like Merrick Garland.
Merrick Garla.
Merrick Garland.
Or he's Merrick Garland without the K at the end of Merrick.
Oh, he's Merrick Garland.
Or isn't it CK at the end of Merrick?
Oh, Merrick. Oh, it's just like Merrick, but not like the hard.
Yeah, not the hard.
Merrick. Not the like Merrick Garland. Right. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So this case, they ruled 5-4 against Apple, saying that so when I read this, I thought, okay, this is a new stupidity. iPhone users are filing a class action antitrust lawsuit against Apple, saying that their 30% commission on sales was unfair. The people who bought it are saying
Apple made too much money.
That they give their salespeople too much money. The people buying, imagine buying a house and then saying, my real estate agent got too much money for it. You already agreed to the price of the house.
Now, so what this means with my handy Apple phone, when you go into your app store, which I'm going to be doing right here. When you go into your app store, you have all of the apps that pop up. And you go,
right.
What app do I want? And if you're not me, you might go to the ones that aren't free. I don't pay for games on my phone. I just won't because I think that's stupid. So you're like, oh, look, new games we love. Daggerhood, a sharp and cunning platformer. And you see $2.99. Well, that seems like quite the deal. $2.99. Now,
right.
Of that $2.99, 30%. Yeah, 30% goes to Apple. Why do I as the person who is buying Daggerhood care. Now, of course,
it's the commission to Apple for developers using the iTunes and iStore and all that stuff.
Right.
So that's a legitimate, and meanwhile, I think it's a stretch, but that's at least, they don't have any standing.
No. This isn't the developers.
The developers have standing.
Right. This isn't if the developers were bringing this, okay. Yeah, you're right. Apple iPhones are like the number one selling phone in the world. I think. I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me. But
I think iPhones are the single, like there are more Androids sold than iPhones,
but there are more, right? But there's only iPhones on this platform, so there's more, right?
They're the single greatest selling phone, right?
Right.
Yeah, I believe that's the case.
And that's how they kind of get that, is because so many different phones use Android, but only Apple uses iOS.
Right.
So if the developers, they want their stuff on Apple, which you do because it's the single greatest selling phone,
right?
You agree to the 30% commission. You kind of kick yourself about it, and you like throw in some extra buy-in so you make some extra money along the way.
Right. Value addeds on after the fact.
But the users, like me, like you, like anybody that uses it, brought a lawsuit against Apple to complain for the developers. I guess I don't even know why they really did it.
No, it sounds like they're arguing on their own. What is stupid? So they're not ruling in favor of the user's case. They're just saying that they can proceed with the case.
Right.
Okay. All right. That makes it slightly. It's still absurd. So imagine you sue. I'll use Walmart again. You find out that Walmart is charging.
Walmart's taking a beating like Apple did this week.
Oh yeah, well only for me though. I'm making up for my trade deficit with them. So imagine a scenario in which you sue Walmart as part of an antitrust because you find out that Walmart and many other grocery stores, they charge distributors. They charge these companies for preferential shelf space, and that's an unfair use of their monopoly of shelf space in the store. That's literally what this is.
Yeah. Like they charge for that middle row that's at eyeline for most people.
Right, which they do. They absolutely do. Because it's prized real estate. Well, you can't have other companies' shelves in here. Food Lion can't have a shelf at the Walmart, and they're charging for me to see it better, and that's not fair. I don't like that. My pickles that I already paid $2.18 for them, or $1.98 or whatever pickles cost. I don't really eat pickles, but whatever you paid for your pickles, you already paid for it. You go, I probably could have paid less for pickles if I had known that. Like, what?
Now, so this entire case is just idiotic to me. Like, of all of the things to be mad about at Apple, which Apple fanboy, there's a lot. More so, if I'm getting mad at anything that has to do with the App Store, it's at the developers that give you the free trial and then they hit you for the like $30 a month like fee.
Right.
Like that is something to be angry about, but that's not Apple. That's what the developers did.
That's what the developers do.
Right. To have the users suing Apple, and for Kavanaugh, the man that was going to bring along the
conservative revolution.
Thank you. Yes, the conservative revolution, to side this way, he is John Roberts 2.0.
This is was worse than John Roberts. John Roberts voted against this. I mean, listen,
that's why he's 2.0. He's been upgraded.
Oh, you're right. He's even more Merrick Garlandy than the last one.
Right.
This is a very anti-market lawsuit. I don't like an agreement that two other people made that I'm involved with after the fact I mean, it's like you go to a nail salon and you don't like how much their landlord charges them for the space, so you sue the landlord. Like, I mean, it's just the stupidest. This needs to get struck down hard because, and then also they're arguing monopoly. Monopoly is not market dominance. Monopoly is where you get so many sectors or so many different parts of a given sector that you choke out all other possible competition. More Androids sell than Apple's. Yes, Apple has deep of all the different companies that make phones and smart devices. They sell more than anyone else, and they're like $1 trillion company. But that's not. They just dominate the market. Google dominates the market. These aren't monopolies. They're just very, 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 very successful.
Right.
And you don't sue them because you don't like their deal with another party that you then bought from.
Right.
That's, again, think of all the ridiculous scenarios that could end up. You sue a restaurant because you find out that the wait staff have to share tips with the cook staff. Like, I mean, it's just like so much, like, because you don't like how something's arranged. Instead of going, well, I'm just not going to go there anymore because I don't like how they do that, you say, I'm going to sue them and make them stop.
And so the other Trump appointee, Gorsuch.
Yeah.
Gorsuch. He wrote the dissenting opinion. And in it, he said that the majority has now created an artificial rule.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Which you are literally giving somebody who has nothing to do with the transaction a voice in the transaction.
We all have a voice in the transaction, but it's through our purchasing.
Right.
I don't want to purchase from someone who does that because I disagree with it, or I will purchase less and purchase more. So your power is in your purchase, not to involve the state and get an injunction against a company for engaging in a practice that doesn't even directly affect you. I'm thinking, like, I keep all these different scenarios that pop up in my head. You go to the gas station and you sue Exxon Mobil for the fact that they're charging as much as they are for fuel, or I mean, it's the stupidest.
Like,
The next step's going to be suing companies because you don't like what they pay their employees. That's what this paves the way for.
Yes.
This paves the way for, and it's going to be the mom and pop shops that will actually get it worse than anyone, because the bigger chains on average pay more than the smaller shops.
Right, exactly.
So it's going to be the small. You'll hear the big stories, Walmart being sued for only paying $11 an hour for people to say welcome to Walmart. But it's going to be these smaller shops that can only afford minimum wage or just above it, $8, $8.50, whatever. They're the ones that are going to get hit by this stuff. And it's just, this needs to go down. This is a terrible, terrible, terrible decision.
Right.
Because in the notes, this bad for tech companies, which is in turn bad for those of us who utilize tech companies, all of us. That's just the beginning. This will slide out into people suing companies that are 2 and 3 times removed from their transaction because they don't think how they did it was nice.
Right.
That's just, with no point of reference on whether that was actually a good business practice or not. I just don't think it was fair.
Right. Like,
I'm going to sue Disney Pixar because I don't think it's fair that, they only paid this actor this much and they paid this actress or actor that much. And I don't think that's fair. So I'm going to sue them for the monopoly on this storyline.
Yeah. It's like the Marvel movie thing issue that came up, I think last summer, where they found out that the male actors were getting paid less than the female actors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like, and if you count screen time, if you count picture deals, if you count everything, like, yeah, they're getting paid a lot more because they negotiated a huge deal. Like,
wait, the males were being paid less or more?
More.
Oh, okay. I thought you said less.
No, more.
Okay.
And that would be like you, the person who's going to see Endgame in the theaters, being like, this is not fair. Brie Larson, who's in the movie for 6 minutes, deserves the exact same payment that Robert Downey Jr. deserves.
Who's like the rock of that, the anchor of that. He's one of the main people of that whole franchise.
Right.
Probably the biggest single person in the franchise.
Or that
but I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right.
It's not.
And Disney, Marvel, whatever, ABC, Disney, they have a monopoly on Marvel movies. And it's not right and it's not fair. I want my ticket money back. It's just,
you
want to stop it.
They kind of do have a monopoly on Marvel movies.
They absolutely do, because they have all the intellectual property.
Well, now now they do. At the time they didn't, because they didn't have Fox at the time. But
they have the monopoly on that storyline, at least on Avengers and so forth. So I mean,
and you know what? They crushed it. I'm not going to give away any spoilers or anything, but they crushed it, and there's nothing there to complain about. The fact that Scarlett Johansson did not get paid as much as Chris Evans or any of the people who had their own, Chris Evans, Chris Helmsworth, I'm not sure about Ruffalo. I'm not going to say either way, or not Tony Stark. Robert Downey Jr. Tony Stark,
But they all had their own movies.
But they're right. It was all part of bigger picture deals.
Yeah.
She was in Iron Man 2, Avengers 2, Captain America Civil War, and then the 2 newest Avengers movies. And I can't think of any others that she was in. But
even if it's not fair, and not right, and she should have been paid more, that's between her.
Has nothing to do with the consumer.
And them. If I don't like it, I just don't watch it, or I stream it illegally, and I share on social media how I disagree with it, and I start a boycott campaign. These are all legitimate forms of dealing with stuff. Using the force of law to say, I don't like your business practices and I have no real point of reference, but it doesn't seem like it's fair to me. So just stop it. That's like, you want to talk about hurting the economy? That is
right.
Incredibly dangerous.
This is insanely dangerous. It's going to hike up prices across the board for everybody.
It's going to hike up prices. It's going to make companies not want to do business with other companies. And I don't, how do you arrange a negotiation based on what the consumer might think of it? Not that they won't use your product, but that they'll sue you and extract damages from you.
This was when this came across my feed yesterday. I think it was yesterday I saw this. When this came across my feed yesterday, I stared at it for a while reading it, and I was like, I
can't be reading this right.
I am missing something.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
No.
The consumer now, because of this, is given so much power over the deals made by corporations, by companies, that you have to keep them in mind before making any deals.
You have to keep them in mind. Again, the consumer is king to the extent that if people don't buy it, now you're dead. You're not selling anything.
Right.
But that's different than using the force of law after having so that's the difference. Now I'm purchasing it from you in bad faith and suing you and getting damages and rewards, and you just did all this and got nothing for it. So it's the worst of both worlds, and it puts you in a situation, like you said, where it's like, well, what are every possible consumer going to think about this? And
are enough of them going to be able to get together to get a lawyer that's going to think that they can sue us?
Right. And so you're taking less and less ability to negotiate contracts for private companies, and you're putting more and more power in a government monopoly. You want to talk about a monopoly, an antitrust monopoly, a violent monopoly that arrests people that aren't even American citizens for sharing information that got leaked to them with Julian Assange. that's who you're giving more power to. You're taking it from people who are coming up with apparently agreeable commission structures for developers who otherwise wouldn't have been able to sell it to you. What platform were they going to give it to you on? It's just, 30% seems high, but what do I know?
And not only that, but it has nothing to do with us.
It has nothing to do with me. If I am so moved to go, this is terrible, I never would do something like that. I will never buy an Apple product again in my life. Or I'll never, buy anything on iTunes or whatever. Or I'm going to go to Android where they only charge 28% or whatever. I'm sure it's very similar. I will laugh if it's higher. This is just stupid as hell. This is dumb. I don't even know where else to go with this. This is dumb.
The conservatives who are corporate shills and consistently support big business over the little people have literally, one of them has literally taken the exact opposite stance to anything that requires logic and reason.
Yeah.
Words cannot describe how not upsetting, like obviously like I'm upset by it, but just baffling. It is.
It's absurd, and it also is worrisome about what this is going to do to an already heavily controlled market,
and
where at least people could enter into anything. I don't like how much the builder charged you to build your building, so I'm going to sue them 10 years later. Right. I don't think it's not right. It's not right that my chicken sandwich at this restaurant costs so much because your builder charged you what I believe is an exorbitant amount for your roof. And even if my lawsuit is absurd, that building company has to now either take it to court or settle, which they'll probably just settle.
Yeah.
Now you just got all these endless settlements being paid out. By the way, hope you weren't trying to get to court with anything legitimate, because now the court's going to be even further clogged up with all these bogus lawsuits. Well, I think it's not fair how little Walmart, McDonald's, Starbucks paid for the coffee farmers for their coffee beans, and so I'm suing them for antitrust. Like, it is really, really, really bad. I'm against all antitrust laws to begin with, but this is
I guess this
is the final stupid logical conclusion of antitrust law.
Yeah, this has just blown everything out of the water that I thought that the Supreme Court would do.
I remember they did the thing where they said that, the federal government can force, or states can force companies outside of their state to charge to add the sales tax, the so-called Main Street Fairness Act, because everyone can't wait to just get out to Main Street and buy stuff.
Right.
Anyway,
there's a reason brick and mortar's going under.
Exactly. The tax is just the sales tax is a tiny fraction of the problem. Anyway, when they did that, I'm like, oh, wow. So this is going to be one of those courts. But that was before Kavanaugh was on. So I'm like, oh, maybe a Kavanaugh will add some pro-market stuff. Man. Nope. So you just got to hope that this gets struck down hard, like the Chevron lawsuit did.
Yeah.
It just gets struck down, and the people who carried it out get made an example of. But this doesn't, the fact that they allowed it in the first place doesn't bode well. So we shall see.
Yes.
And we shall also see tomorrow night on My Fellow Americans. This is my segue. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I was going to say, while brick and mortar stores are going under because of the ease of shopping online.
Right.
You too can take advantage of shopping online and visit our Amazon store. If you go to Amazon.com.
Oh, yeah.
If you go to Amazon.com and you search for Muddied Waters clothing, you will get a litany of shirts designed by us here at Muddied Waters. And you can show all of the support that you have for what is most assuredly your favorite podcast every week, and wear our official clothing out in the world to let other people know that Muddied Waters and Muddied Waters Media is your favorite podcast.
A large and growing assortment of different designs and styles on there. And if you end up suing Amazon because you don't think what their cut is from selling of us selling stuff on Amazon is fair, and you get anything, maybe just throw some of that back at us.
Yeah, that'd be great. Which you can donate
if you're going to do it.
Which you can donate.
Don't do it, but if you do it, we could use some money.
Yeah, which you can donate to us through Anchor
you can donate
FM.
to us on Anchor FM.
So tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, My Fellow Americans, if I can get my computer to work, then on My Fellow Americans, I will have the lovely, beautiful, and talented Mr. Lou Sander on. He will be there to talk about, he was my first guest, my very first episode. And it's always, this will be his third time on my show. It's always a pleasure to have him on. And he will be promoting his event, the Midwest Peace and Liberty Festival, a libertarian festival up in Michigan that happens every year. He'll be promoting that. And then on Thursday, big get, I got Shane Sweeney on Thursday on the writer's block. I'm going to be teaching him how to read. I'm going to be teaching old Shane Sweeney how to read. And we're going to be discussing the old drug war and terrorism. Nice. Yeah. As you teach him to read.
As I'm teaching him to read. But big week. And then we're closing out the week with Mr. No, we aren't. Jason Lyon has taken a much needed and much deserved couple days off.
Yeah, after his blazing a trail twice a week with his show, Mr. America, the Bearded Truth, he will be taking this Friday off. He will be taking a sabbatical on the Sabbath. And then on Monday, he will also be continuing his sabbatical. And then Tuesday, join us back here at the Muddied Waters of Freedom, where we parse through the weekend's event with a winning smile and a child's laughter.
If you or any of your friends happen to be looking for us in other online areas other than where you are watching us right now, please first rate us on wherever you are watching or listening to us right now.
Thank you.
Then you can go to facebook.com, formerly thefacebook.com, but it was cleaner. Facebook.com/Muddied Waters of Freedom. And you can hit the old like button. You can then go over to Instagram and find us at Muddied Waters of Freedom and hit the old follow button. Head on over to the Twitter, where people tweet in 360 characters or less, erasing 2 trillion from the global budget.
Yeah, we promise not to erase the global economy with our tweets.
And you can find us at muddied_waters, where you can follow us. I think you follow us on Twitter.
Yes.
Right. And then on the old YouTube, you can find us at youtube.com/muddiedwatersmedia, where you can subscribe and then hit the bell button for notifications. And you can find this and every episode of Muddied Waters Media on muddiedwatersofreedom.com.
And we gotta close out big.
I was not ready for that.
No one was. You can also find us on anchor.fm/
Muddied Waters Media.
Be sure to check us out there.
It may not be Muddied Waters Media, but it will be by next week.
Yeah, anchor.fm/ right now it's Muddied Waters of Freedom, but it will be Muddied Waters Media. You can see all our episodes. If you want to listen to our podcast, that would be where to do it. You can support us there. You can listen. You can just watch our ads over and over again.
That's right. You can start your own podcast.
Yeah, and you want to start your own podcast, we will follow you and listen to your ads. We just listen to each other's ads all day.
All day long.
It's like multi-level marketing, but with podcasting. I regret saying that. So guys, thanks again for tuning in. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow and Thursday. And then have a great weekend, and we'll see you again next week. And where we're going,
we don't need roads.